Earlier today, we got our first bit of information regarding Madden 26 in terms of the first initial trailer, along with much of the new additions that are going to be added to the game, and I'm excited to break them down here in today's episode. We learned a lot about what the game and the gameplay may look like, and Madden briefly went over some of the changes to our favorite modes, specifically franchise. There's going to be a bigger deep dive for franchise mode later in the summer, probably in July, if I had to guess. But we were given some basic information and breadcrumbs in terms of what to expect, and I think there seems to be some positive additions to the game this year. I'm going into the Madden cycle cautiously optimistic because I want to see how all of these things actually play out in the game before reserving strong judgment. But if executed well, this could be one of the better Maddens we've had in recent years. So let's go over all of the information that was provided inside of EA's notes, which were provided with the gameplay trailer. I'll put a link in the description. So in terms of gameplay, they focused on real-life NFL data, setting tendencies and traits for many of the top players in the game, along with a strong focus on weather, making sure rain and snow, stuff like that, strongly impact the game. I'm curious to see how they executed that. Clearly, they've put a lot of emphasis into it, so it seems like the weather will make a strong impact this year. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that in just a moment. But let's talk about this whole idea of traits and tendencies mattering, specifically quarterback DNA. QBs are going to play a lot more like their real-life selves, and coaches are going to call the games a lot more like their real versions. Look at a guy like Dan Campbell, for instance, in Detroit, who has sort of revolutionized fourth down play calling. The Lions are going to call games just like Dan Campbell would in real life, which I think sounds really fun. Obviously, it adds to the immersiveness, and it really would feel like you're playing against the Lions. I think one of the issues with Madden in recent years is that the teams themselves do not feel that different in terms of play calling, in terms of play style. So now that'll be the case. How players play will also be more realistic. It seems like with the data and the AI that they've added into the game, specifically with quarterback tendencies. I'm fascinated to see what this could entail. I wonder if it'll be kind of similar to 2K and their player tendencies. I think that could be a really good addition. Wear and tear and new depth chart positions. So we'll start with the depth chart changes because the franchise community, myself included, has been begging for this for years. We will now have edge rushers, nose tackles, long snappers, gadget players, and two-way guys for Travis Hunter. I think it goes without saying that this is great news. We've been begging for this for a while, and now finally, Max Crosby and Matt Milano will not be playing the same position. The previous positional terminology has gotten outdated, talking about defensive ends and outside linebackers, unless it's a scheme-dependent defensive end or linebacker. The phrase defensive end has evolved now into edge rusher, and I'm happy that EA has been able to finally make that change. Wear and tear has improved as well, something that we saw in College Football 25. I think there were some good parts and bad parts to it, so it seems like they've improved it. And they specifically mentioned how a guy like Travis Hunter, his wear and tear might be different as a two-way guy, which is good news because I remember in MLB The Show when Shohei Ohtani was first in the game, his energy level was a problem, and he always sucked as a pitcher because it took them 4 or 5 years to figure that out. So luckily, that's not going to be the case, it looks like, with Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the ball. It seems like the biggest change for gameplay involves football weather. We're going to see weather and the elements make a much bigger impact than previously. There were some clips here in the trailer that showed players slipping and sliding around in the rain, the snow clearly making an impact. I imagine wind and fog are going to be bigger as well. So this sounds really good. And again, I'm curious to see how they execute it. I don't want to get too excited until we actually play the game. But I think that's going to be a really fun addition if it's executed well. Weather is obviously a big part of the game, and it should be displayed as such. I'm definitely looking forward to playing in the rain and the snow and seeing how it affects my ball carriers, how it affects the quarterback, how it affects even the special teams and the kicking as well. They've also talked about other changes to gameplay, making things more realistic overall. Guys with 4.2 speed like Tyreek Hill and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to play like guys with 4.2 speed. The best and most dynamic players and athletes will really look the part, which is something that the game has also been kind of missing. Custom defensive zones have been added into the game as well. It seems like there's going to be more customization and flexibility in terms of your zone coverage plays defensively, how you want your corners playing off the line, where you want your safeties to line up, etc. It seems like coaching and play calling, there's more strategy behind it, and it's more realistic. So that sounds like a pretty good idea. We'll see how that's ultimately executed. Franchise mode. There do seem to be some positive additions to franchise mode this year. The number one thing I ask, though, is that the mode is user-friendly. Like, above adding any features, it needs to be more user-friendly than it was last year. For those of you who have been around the channel, you guys may remember how I had to recreate the entirety of the first draft class in the Broncos franchise. That was a pain. Let's not have that again. Please and thank you, EA. But they added some good stuff here. It seems like coaching abilities are going to be more prevalent than years past. Playbooks seem to be more important than ever as well, which definitely lines up with what they've been saying in terms of the coaching DNA, and that's certainly a good thing. As we mentioned earlier, we want these teams to play like they do in real life. I am a little bit skeptical, though. I do want to see how these playbooks simulate inside franchise mode. Not so much in Madden 25, but within the last few years, it feels like not so much the best teams always do well in franchise mode, but more so the teams with the best playbook, so hopefully that's not the case. It seems like presentation has been improved quite a bit. We're going to have halftime shows and weekly recap shows with Scott Hansen, which is dope because, first of all, who doesn't love Scott Hansen? I will point out that for those of you who have been around the channel, you know I've already been kind of doing this with the halftime shows, so ding, 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 I guess. But I am excited to see how EA is going to do it. Obviously, there's going to need to be highlights. Otherwise, what's the point of having a halftime show? So I'm really curious to see how they execute that. But I think that could be a really fun addition, along with the weekly recap shows with our guy Scott Hansen. There's also going to be improved presentation for the primetime games. Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night games are going to feel like primetime games. I imagine the commentary will be different. Hopefully we get different score bugs. That'd be pretty cool. In the current form of Madden, the only difference between a regular game and a primetime game is that it's dark out. So now, it's going to actually feel like a primetime game, which is pretty awesome. Presentation as a whole will improve in terms of coaches and whatnot, looking more realistic. They mentioned Dan Campbell again, wearing his signature outfit. In terms of uniforms, there's going to be more alternate and classic uniforms. And they also talked about the home field matching with the uniform that your team is wearing. The Houston Texans were the example used here. They had those new alternate uniforms with the unique H logo. So now the stadium is going to actually have that logo on the field when those are the uniforms you're wearing. We also have some new information for Superstar Mode. It seems like they've made some fun additions to that. Of course, you'll be able to import your Road to Glory players from College Football 26 into Madden. I don't think we're going to be able to import draft classes, unfortunately, as much as I would like that. I think there's some legal issue behind that. And then Ultimate Team as well. They have some new information for Mutt. So if you want to pause and read this or go through all the notes, I will leave a link to this article in the description. So that'll wrap things up. I hope you guys enjoyed and are excited for more Madden 26 content on the channel. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Peace out.